Welcome to the Generation Elevation podcast, a conscious, connected platform for those who are ready to manifest their dream life. I'm your host, Elise Riley, a former PT, now motivational speaker, igniting empowerment and transformation all across the globe. Here at Generation Elevation, we are committed to bringing you the most inspiring guests who will share their stories, wisdom, and advice to help you progress closer to living a life of your own terms. Welcome back, guys, to another episode of Generation Elevation. Today's guest is a close friend of mine, and I'm super excited to have him on my show. He is the host of the I Am Me podcast. He is an online coach and also a fitness influencer and model. And this person, he is a master networker. He knows everybody, and he comes from such a place of like wanting everyone to win and wanting the best for everyone. I really love this about this guy, and it is such a pleasure to have him on my show today and introduce to you Jaxon Tippet. Hello.
What a vibe. I love you, Elise. You're my favorite now. Thank you for having me on. I am so keen, and congratulations on actually starting your podcast. And, you know, you've already got some huge guests on board, which is amazing. And I'm thrilled to just be one of them and to talk a bit of my journey and hopefully get a bit of, you know, recognition by other listeners and hopefully help someone or someone gets something out of this. I think that's the main purpose of each podcast.
Yeah, 100%. Honestly, like, such a pleasure to have you on, and thank you. Like, yeah, I feel like we've been planning this for such a long time. So, yeah, I think to have you on, and like we pre-framed before we got on the call, I was kind of like, you know what, let's just flow, let's be organic, because yeah, I've seen you do these sorts of things with a lot of other people. So I really want this to be unique to Generation Elevation audience. And I really believe they're going to get some awesome stuff from you today. So are you ready?
I really appreciate that. But yeah, it's so crazy. Like, we met that first time when I came down, and then we literally haven't met since then. Like, it's just, but I'm a big believer in like everything happens for a reason, and when the time aligns, it'll align again. But in the meantime, like, that's why social media is so great, because I can still watch your content. We can still keep in touch. We can still do stuff like this, even if we're not seeing each other.
Yeah, 100%. I'm excited for today. I think like we're going to talk about some really potent topics. So with that said, Jaxon, a lot of my audience probably doesn't know who you are. So I want to just quick fire a couple of questions just so they get a good idea of who you are, what you do, and why I brought you to my podcast. Would that be cool?
Absolutely. So you want me to fire away?
No, I'm firing away at you. So Jaxon, how old are you? And when I said like online coach, like what specifically do you do with your coaching?
Yeah, awesome question. So 27 years of age, online coach. So yeah, there's obviously so many different forms of coaching. At the moment, I am strictly an online coach in terms of nutrition, training, and I would say mindset. So what I would do is I would take an individual on and I would send them out like a questionnaire type of thing, look at their body, and then I would decide what to do with their nutrition and their training program to help them to get towards their goal, whether that's muscle building or fat loss or whatever it may be. And then from there, I will keep working with them week to week, adjusting any variables I need to do to help them get towards that. And then while doing that, I will jump on a weekly phone call, basically touch over everything. But more importantly, on that phone call, just really make sure I'm keeping them accountable, their mindset's on point, and they're getting through with everything 100%.
I love it. And so where are you originally from?
So I'm originally from Melbourne. I actually grew up on a farm.
Wait, which
And
area? I'm from like Maston Ranges.
whereabouts?
Maston.
I'm from Horsham.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, crazy, small world.
Wow. There you go. So you're from Horsham.
Yeah, and then only lived there until I was 7 and then moved up to Noosa. So completely different lifestyle. And then I've floated, my parents currently live there, and then I've floated between Noosa and the Gold Coast ever since.
Yeah, amazing. So I have this question for you as well. What is something that you have learnt this week?
Oh, man, you always put me on the spot. I've learned to take more time for myself. It's something that I really have never done a lot of. I always try give back, and I'm always trying to accommodate for people. And I get very stressed if I don't reply to people or just little things like that. And like no one's going anywhere. And, I'm my own unique self, and I'm my only person that I can give out energy and helping others. And I'm never giving that back and putting it back into myself. At the end of the day, like it doesn't really get me anywhere. So I think you need to take time for yourself. And it's just something I've learned. And it doesn't need to be serious. It could just be, putting down your phone. Like you've told me this when we're on our walk. It could just be putting down your phone for an extra hour or two a day, or it could be just doing a little bit of meditation or just taking some time out for yourself. So I think that's one thing that I've learned massively.
Yeah, I love that so much.
I want to ask you though,
Yeah.
and flip the switch. What's one thing you have learned this week?
Wait, whose podcast are we on?
No, this is what it's all about.
I love it. Yeah, so what have I learnt this week? I've had some really beautiful learnings, and I'm like, how do I even share? What do I even share? There's so many things. I feel like I'm going through a huge growth and evolution at the moment. So I went on a podcast interview the other day, and I actually shared this with my client, Charlotte. She's starting a podcast, and she interviewed me and she asked me the same question. And the answer that I gave her was a lot of my stuff is self-taught. Like the things I'm teaching my clients, I will do and I'll be like, oh, that's a framework that I can teach. So the other day I wrote down a list of things that I wanted and realized that after reading a lot of Joe Dispenza's work around space-time and how there's different versions of you in the future, in the past, all living the same reality now, because all there is now. And so if you're still with me after that explanation, basically when you decide on what you want, potential limiting beliefs or fears that come up that around that thing that you want, all brought to light for that purpose to be dealt with in this now, because the signs and synchronicities in your reality, in your external experience will come to you once you start to deal with those things that have been coming up. So it's like the future you is calling kind of thing, and those beliefs and fears that come up in that now are coming up now for the reason that when you deal with them, that thing that is calling you, that you are calling in, will meet in your new reality. So what I did was I wrote down a list of things that I wanted, and then any limiting beliefs or fears that I had around those things. And then I wrote as if I was the person already that I want to be. And I wrote down like how that new version of myself would think, or what that new version of myself would believe, those fears and doubts that I had in the past. So hopefully that makes sense, but it's a 3-step process.
I love that. You're always full of like very interesting things. I love it.
Thank you. I'd like to think so. That's why I have my podcast, I guess, to talk about all the interesting things and have on all the interesting guests.
Well, I'm glad to be one of them.
Yes. Oh, I'm so happy that you're here as well. I'm glad to be doing this with you today. So I'm curious, Jaxon, like I know that you've been on a fair few podcasts and you've mentioned your story a few times. So there would be a lot of people that know, what you've gone through and things like that. So I guess for those that are listening who have no idea who you are, maybe just like a brief rundown of how you went from living in Horsham to Noosa to Gold Coast to Noosa to Gold Coast and like to where you are now from that period in your life where you've had those lows that have brought you to where you are today. Maybe just like a brief rundown of like, how are you here on my podcast right now?
Man, that is a very massive question with a lot of... So how far do you want me to break that down?
Let's go into maybe the 3 main events that have shaped you to who you are today.
Okay, so I became a PT when I finished high school. I completed my Cert 3 and 4 in fitness. I've always been active. I love fitness and I loved, wanting to help people transform their bodies and mindsets through nutrition and training. That led me into online coaching, which is what I currently do, and how I kind of grew my platform through IG and connecting with people like yourself and all of that type of good stuff. But just before that, I went down a pretty dark road when I got into the gym scene. I got heavily addicted into steroids. That was based off mainly, obviously, my decision, but off the crowd I was hanging around with. They were all doing it. So it was very normal. And I got into that. And I got very, very addicted to that, which I suffered a lot of low times through anger, losing friends, a lot of discomfort with my family. My health deteriorated, all of those type of things. I mean, it nearly led me going to jail. And that's kind of where everything reversed around in my life, based off the fact that I just suffered such a low time. And then I seen myself reverse out of it to the point where I'm now actually helping people talk about, the path that I went down, and then all the little things that you can do to maybe get out of a bad habit or break a drug addiction or level up your life or, grow your mindset better. And it's kind of led me to where I am today, which is why I'm doing my own podcast and maybe how I became a friend of yours and now speaking on your podcast.
Yeah, that's really cool. And so over your journey, what would be like, you mentioned going to jail and being addicted to steroids, right? And going through like major negative emotions like anger. What were, in your words, the biggest lessons that you learned during that time about yourself?
When I was at my low or now?
I think let's do both.
So the biggest lessons I learned when I was in my darkest stages were health is number one. You only have one body and one life. So if your health deteriorated, nothing else means anything. If you're dead, what does anything mean? What does it mean if you have the best physique or whatever it may be? So health is number one. So if you're harnessing your health, I suggest you maybe take a look at what you're doing and rethink your actions and make a change. Family is number one. I just realized that, we've got close friends and, we got a lot of people that we associate with, but none of them have your back like your family. So if you don't have your mum, dad, brother or sister or whatever, you've lost connection with them or whatever it may be, then really there's no point. Like, they're the only ones that will truly be there for you. So if you're losing them, you've lost everything. So they're probably the 2 biggest things I took out of when I was suffering my low, that I need to watch my health. Obviously, I don't want to die. And if I'm not close with my mum and dad and my brother, then, I don't really have anyone that actually truly has my back and will be there for me if I'm suffering something or have a dark down time. So they're probably the 2 biggest takeaways I took out of my low.
And what about like the lessons that you're learning now, like taking time for yourself and things like that?
What I'm learning, probably, man, that's a hard one. Man, you put me on the spot. So like lessons, like, I don't really know.
Okay, so
What do you mean by lessons now? Like, what am I?
well, like what are you moving through at the moment? Like you mentioned earlier that you're really learning to take time for yourself. And I guess potentially looking back in hindsight at those lessons of like family
Yeah,
and things like
another lesson that I've probably learned as of late is that you cannot please everyone.
mm,
And this is something that I definitely tried to do in my earlier days. And I highly recommend, if anyone's listening, to take this on board, that no matter what you do, no matter who you try and impress, what you look like, whatever it may be, you're always going to have people that hate you, talk about you, dislike you. You will never please anyone. So what I've learned to do is just do what truly makes you happy from the inside out. Do what you truly want to do in life. Speak how you want to speak, and then the right people will come into your life and they will surround you. Whereas if you fake it, what you're doing is you're attracting the wrong crowd. That it's like a misconception. So if I put on a fake smile or a fake character and then I attract this person, that person is not actually meant for me. So it's better just to be your real self, and then the right people will align with you.
I love that so much. And I'm a huge believer in that also. So I completely agree. And so this kind of is perfect transition to what I wanted to ask you next. Obviously, for those that do know you, and potentially if you go to check out Jaxon's profile, he has quite a big following. So, Jaxon, I'm curious, especially when you mentioned like people pleasing and things like that, and then earlier stressing about not getting back to people and making sure, you know, you're constantly engaging. How have you managed to handle that pressure? Like, is there pressure to be a certain person when you're online, and how have you gone like handling that, like that those expectations of you?
Oh, absolutely. There's massive pressure. In saying that though, like there is and there isn't. So obviously there is pressure, but there doesn't have to be if you don't need it to be, if that makes sense. I think I just took it on board more than maybe other people because I just wanted to showcase my best. And because when you're getting so much traction and people seeing your stuff, it's like you only want to look your best or say your best or do your best. Do you know what I mean? Otherwise, it's like in the back of your mind, it's like, oh, what if this person thinks that of me because I put up that photo or I said that, but realistically, you know what I mean? Like, as I've gone back to what I just said, you can't please everyone. So not everyone's going to see you at your pinpoint and most amazing side of, you know, what you are. And I think the reality is that IG in terms of Instagram is very fake. And what you'll find is a lot of people, they only show their highlights. It's like a highlight reel. And that's where it becomes very pressured on you because it is a highlight reel. And then what you perceive of yourself is everything has to be a highlight. Nothing can be organic or real. So everything has to be perfect and nothing can be just like, oh, a simple, you know, photo without a filter or any edits. Like, and it's got to the point where that's what the reality of Instagram is. And that's probably why I took so much pressure on board. But I've slowly transitioned out of that and I am, you know, showcasing more of my real self. It is hard, but it's, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, like, you can't please everyone. So you may as well just be yourself.
Yeah. And so I'm curious because you said like I'm showing more of my real self. Like, who is that? Who is that you're speaking of?
Yeah, good question. I'm just a normal person. I'm actually very, how do you say it? Oh man, just I like my own space. I don't go out and party often. I don't do drugs. I don't do all of these things that people think that I probably am. I actually just enjoy little things like, you know, jumping on a podcast with you, doing, you know, adventures and eating good food and traveling and like just literally simple things. But a lot of people perceive you as something different, like this fuck boy or this party animal or And it's like, no, I'm the complete opposite. Like, I'm just very easygoing, and yeah, I just love my own space.
Oh, this is so good because before we jumped on this recording, everyone, I was explaining to Jaxon the concept of generation and elevation and why I bring guests on. And the reasons I bring guests on is, one, to showcase people that are making positive impact in the community, which one, Jaxon is doing on a massive scale. And then two, people that are living their life outside of the box and like just like being authentically themselves. And I really love where this conversation is going, because I even wanted to speak to you about this, is like what would be your advice dealing with assumptions about you? Because for those listening, Jaxon has a specific that isn't necessarily, it's quite unique and different. And I believe that it's totally different to the box and the standard look of society. And I'm not saying there's something wrong or right about that, but I love that Jaxon completely and utterly embraces who he is in that way. And so my question is to you, Jaxon, how do you deal with assumptions about you? Because I'm sure this happens all the time.
Once again, it was very different in my past to my now. I took it on board very hard. Like if someone used to say, for example, I'm a bikie or I'm a drug addict, and I would take that to heart and it would really affect me because I knew I wasn't. But lately I've more realized that, haters or people that talk, shit about you or negativity, they usually are not comfortable with their own life, and they're usually not happy with themselves, or they're probably jealous of where they've seen you come from to where you are now. So I just don't let it affect me. And it's just literally as plain and simple as that.
I love that. And you know what? Like, I teach this a lot with my clients around comparison, how it's like a thief of joy, right? And when we have a like quality within us or an archetype within ourselves that we are not embodying, and we perceive it in our external reality via someone else. So let's say you reflecting back to me your authenticity and your ability to embrace who you are, your look and your confidence, right? And if I was to be then triggered by that, that's then reflecting back to me that I am not embracing my own authenticity and embodying like my own confidence to the full extent. And so, yeah, anyone that is hating on you in any walks of life, whether it be on social media, whether it be Sally at work, right? Like, it's not your problem, it's a them problem kind of thing.
100%. It's usually on them 99% of the time. So don't take it to heart.
I love that. So I'm curious as well, like, what is next for you? Like, where do you see yourself going with this? Because obviously you've gone through a bit of like a rough time, and then now you're in your coaching, but also incorporating mindset and things like that as well, and really starting to embody and grow on a spirituality level as well. Like, where do you see yourself going with all this?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't 100% know, to be honest. I really would love to dip into the space of, I would really love to dip in the space of like guest speaking and motivational speaking around the world. That would be the end goal. So basically like what I'm doing on my podcast, but more like going to events, going to schools, very high up there, helping people overcome, mental health issues, mindset, drug addiction, all of that type of stuff. That would be kind of the end goal. I do love the coaching and the modeling, but the modeling is only short term. The coaching is something I can always do on the side, but the goal would be to, in a nutshell, help people by me talking on stages around the world. That would be the ultimate super cool job. I wouldn't even call it a job because it'd be amazing.
Yeah, 100%. I am so with you on that. And yeah, that's why I do what I do with my podcast as well. Like, just that inner knowing of, yeah, I'm going to speak on stage one day, and the how doesn't really matter. It's just going to happen. They're calling future you in, right? And so have you ever experienced like limiting beliefs or anything like that that have like held you back in the past from like really going all in on that vision, that goal, or not really?
Of what I'm trying to chase?
Yeah.
100%. You always have it. Like I even get it to this day, but I think you got to push them aside. And yeah, you just got to kind of back yourself. Do you know what I mean? I think you just really have to back yourself and believe that everything will work out. And if you do that and you put in the time and you stay consistent, I'm a big believer in you can really do anything you want in life.
100%. Like if you think it, you can create it, right? I like that one. Nice. Maybe
that was my first tattoo ever.
Oh, really? Maybe we make this like the podcast title or something.
100%. Yeah, that was my first one. A little bit of writing, and then it just kind of grew from there.
Yeah. Wow, that's so good. I actually am still yet to get my first tattoo. I don't have one yet. We'll see.
What are you going to get?
I haven't really planned.
What?
I've always thought about like getting focus somewhere because I feel like it embodies like focusing on what you want and where is your focus right now. And like, yeah, I really like think it embodies a lot of what I teach. So maybe, but I don't know. I just haven't got around to it yet. I'm like, yeah, waiting for that spontaneous day where I go, oh, well.
Don't rush it. There's no need. I think, really decide what you want and then get it done.
Yeah. Do you have any tattoos that you regret or like would change or have changed?
There's heaps that are, to be honest, I would want to change, but you can't, and they are what they are, and you just got to embrace it.
That's really like metaphorical. It's almost like, your past is your past and you can't really change it. So it's only forward.
Yeah. Like what's the point of dwelling on something that you physically can't change? So you just embrace it and you be the best version you can. And if anything, you learn to love it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's like a version of you that was doing the best with what they knew at the time.
100%.
I love it. And so, okay, so you're wanting to speak all around the world and you're quite heavily in business right now. So you've got your coaching, you're helping so many people. And like you said, you've got your family, you're super close with them as well. But like, what about like friends, relationships, things like that? My question is, for people who are a little bit nervous around like jumping into personal development and being their true selves and meeting new people.
Yeah, see, it's easy for me to say because like I don't see the reason to be nervous because at the end of the day, it's coming back to what I just said before is you just got to be your own unique, goofy self. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So it's like if you're nervous or someone's nervous, it's usually because you're nervous because you want to kind of impress or put on a show, correct? Mm-hmm. So it's like you're overthinking it. It's like you're nervous because you're thinking, what if they think this of me? Or what if they say that and like, they think, oh, why is he wearing that or doing that? But it's like if you subside all that and you just be your own unique self, I think all of that goes away and the confidence builds up, and because you're literally just doing you.
Yeah, I love that so much. Yeah, definitely.
Like I think people, like for example, just an example, like if you go on a date, we've all done this, but you will put on your best outfit, you will look your best, you will do anything to try and impress that person. So then in the hopes that you maybe get together and you stay together forever. But in realistic, like you put so much pressure on yourself that what I've learned is like through doing this in the past is sometimes like literally just when you be yourself or you don't try to do anything out of the ordinary, and you are just goofy or unique, or everything's not about money or looks or whatever it is, that person might actually be attracted to you 10 times more.
Yeah, because it's like like what we were speaking about before, about just completely being yourself rather than trying to pretend to be someone you're not and then attracting the person that you're not.
100%. That's exactly right. So I think for everyone listening, just be you and the right person will come along.
Yeah, and I feel like that's business partners, that's friendships, that's relationships, that's like everything that encompasses, right?
110.
Amazing. Okay, so Jaxon, I do have one last question for you because I want to be mindful of your time. But before I ask, where can my listeners find you if they want to learn a little bit more about what you do?
You are amazing. You always just make me sound so good when I'm not. Just on my Instagram is the best place to find me, at I am Jaxon Tippet. That's where I do everything. So my website's on there with my coaching, my modeling, my podcast is on there. And yeah, just literally send me a message if you have any questions or if you're going through any struggles or you're lacking anything. Just send me a message and I will get back to you. And that's the best way to find me, is just through a simple message on Instagram.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And are you ready for this last question?
I'm feeling like it's going to be a big one, but I'm keen.
It's my favorite question to ask people. It fits every time and it's so open that it can literally go anywhere. So I love it. And
oh, geez.
Sitting down, are you ready?
I'm ready.
So my question is, if you could channel in one piece of advice, whether you think of it like the first thing that comes to your mind, one major piece of advice, learning lesson that you believe the listeners need to hear right now, and it doesn't have to relate to what we've spoken about already, what would that advice be?
Don't fear failure. Is that okay?
Is that?
The reason for that is failure brings success. So everyone listening, you are going to fail one, if not 1,000 times in your life with whatever it is, business, fitness, relationship, whatever it is. So if you fear failure, you've already fucked up because you're going to fail and then you're going to not want to give that. So if you, sorry, I'll go back again. If you fear failure, then what you do is when you actually fail, which I guarantee everyone listening will, then you're not going to want to crack at that thing again that you just failed at, for example. So if you don't fear failure and you embrace it, I've failed so many times, but you embrace it because it makes you think outside the box or come back bigger and stronger and better and attack that again. And eventually, if you stay consistent, you will eventually crack it. So for anyone listening, don't fear failure. It's amazing. Embrace it and move on and you will achieve great things.
I love it. That was great.
There's so many things I could have said, but that's the first thing that come to my head.
Oh, well, that was perfect. It's always the first thing that is exactly what I need to hear and listeners need to hear every single time. So thank you so much for coming on to my show, Jaxon. It's an absolute pleasure to have you, and I look forward to catching up with you hopefully soon.
Thank you so much. And we've only just scraped the surface. We could definitely do another one if the listeners enjoy it. Definitely get you on mine.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Like there's so many things we can talk about. So it'd be good to hear the feedback from everyone. And if you do enjoy it, give me a message or give Elise a message and we'd love to hear your feedback.
100%, guys. You heard the man giving us
One last question though before I go.
Oh.
You probably never get questions. What is your goal with this podcast as of this year? What is your goal? Like, do you want to get bigger and guests on board? Do you want to just put out good information? Like, what is the number one thing you want out of this podcast this year?
The first thing that came to mind was grow. So however this podcast grows, it's just going to do its thing. It's like a little seed that I've planted, and I'm just going to keep watering it until it turns into a big giant oak. And the whole purpose that I've created this is like, if you head to the first episode, I did like a full spiel on like why generation elevation, and in brief, basically it's creating a conscious, connected community of individuals who are ready for change and are ready to be the permission piece to follow their heart, follow their big dreams, face their fears, and step into and embody the highest version of themselves. And so for me, this podcast is the permission piece for the misfits, for the people that don't fit in the box, to go and live a life full of abundance, full of gratitude, full of happiness, full of peace. And when you are at that vibration energetically, I believe the world will be a beautiful place. Not that it isn't already, but I think when everyone's hearts are resonating at the same frequency, that is where the magic is.
I absolutely love that. And I have no doubt whatsoever that you will achieve that, and your podcast will grow. And I know for a fact you will achieve your end goal, which is speaking on stage and helping.
Speaking. Thank you so much.
What did you say?
I said I already am speaking on stage.
Yes, but your end goal.
Yeah. And like ultimate goal is to like run big events, and the little stepping stone is definitely a TEDx vibe.
Well, you got it. Keep rocking it. Keep doing you. And yeah, love your work.
Yeah. Thank you so much again. And thanks everyone for listening. I will catch you on the next episode. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for being a part of the Generation Elevation community. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to leave a 5-star rating, written review, share, and tag me on Instagram at elise.riley. Until next time, keep loving, keep learning, and keep rising.